Good morning, Canada, from South Florida, the free state of Florida. You know, where a lot of Canadians come to hibernate in the wintertime. So anyway, yep, I could do this in French also. My name is Marc Pierre, raised in France, spoke French first, but this is the United States, and I will be speaking just English, except I will use one French word later on. So the reason for this video was that this morning I read in the New York Post information about the fact that President Trump has added a 10% tariff onto some goods from Canada. And then I saw also that President Trump is not meeting with Prime Minister Carney over in the Southeast Asia area where they are right now. And I also saw a couple of Canadian TV news videos speaking on the subject of the fake Ronald Reagan ad, as I put it, and as a lot of other people in the United States put it. If you actually sit down and watch Ronald Reagan's speech when government was not honorable and did not properly reflect the thoughts of Ronald Reagan. And oh, by the way, that was, I think, over 40 years ago. So anyway, here in beautiful South Florida, I decided to take a few minutes and just off the top of my head, with a few scratches on an envelope, let's start out with fact number one. During the first Trump administration, there was a lot of discussions with regard to tariffs between Canada and the United States. The prime area seemed to be with regard to tariffs on dairy products. By the way, I graduated from high school north of Green Bay, Wisconsin, big dairy place. So this was important to me. And what happened during the Biden administration with the Canadian tariffs on American dairy products? They went up. President Trump said that, I think, right after he won the election, and I looked into it. I actually got a copy of the tariffs that Canada was charging the United States. And guess what? Tiny amount of dairy product import into Canada from the United States was at a low percentage rate, but it didn't take much for it to jump up into the hundreds of a percent. I think like 248%, all different products, tariffs at all different rates, but all of them high rates. So that was number one. You guys went back on a promise you made to President Trump. Number two, when President Trump got elected, he started letting you know that he was unhappy about the fact that there was fentanyl coming in from Mexico and from Canada. And you guys said, well, there's not very much coming in from Canada. You guys still say that. Well, guess what? You're going on old information. If you stop fentanyl coming in from Mexico, which we are doing a good job of, where does it come from? Well, one of the places is from Canada, and I have seen some stuff recently with regard to some places in Canada being hit with raids associated with fentanyl. Guess what? President Trump was right. You are wrong. Fentanyl comes in from Canada. The other thing was illegal immigration. A lot more terrorists came into our country from the northern border than from Mexico. You know, the people with money can get into your country with no problems whatsoever, from what I can tell, and then they just sort of disappear into the United States. You guys need to do a better job of protecting your border from illegal immigrants coming into our country. Guess what? That was one of the things that Trump said was the reason why he was putting a tariff on you guys. So fentanyl and illegal immigration, you guys say, no big deal. Third, after Trump put on tariffs, he didn't put them on anything associated with, as you guys call it, CUSMA. He put it on things that were part of outside of the CUSMA products. So CUSMA covered 85% of what you guys sent to us. So he was putting a tariff on the 15% of things that you guys sent to us that were not part of CUSMA. What did you guys turn around and do? You started putting tariffs on things from America that were covered by CUSMA. Why did you do that? That was in violation of the treaty. Oh, by the way, the CUSMA treaty is up for renegotiation in 2026. Doesn't seem like a bright idea to me that you guys would be pulling President Trump's chain on CUSMA and the chain of Americans like me. Yep, that's probably empty plane going north, going to get filled up with Canadians. It's coming back down to South Florida. Now then, let me look at my notes. You know, there was also a trade imbalance last year. That was another thing that President Trump was hitting up. We don't manufacture as much things as we should be, and we were held to task for that during COVID. And even very recently, the rare earth problem that China is creating for everybody. You know, you guys could easily become a very close friend of ours. But the trade deficit between us and Canada was $45 billion. I would think that's important to you guys. So sitting down and talking with President Trump or his representatives would be very important. But no, 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 no. You guys, and you should know better than to poke the bear, but I would guess that the people handling this Ronald Reagan advertisement were city dwellers. So they don't really understand anymore the idea about leaving the wildlife alone in Canada. So don't poke that bear, but you guys did. Ronald Reagan to us is a big hero. And you guys took his words and distorted them. You guys artificially changed what he was talking about, rearranged them, not just the taking out some clips, you also rearranged the clips. You did exactly what 60 Minutes did with the Kamala Harris interview. They took an answer to one question and made it be an answer to a different question where she had really responded stupidly. So having said that, I can't believe that you guys did that. I really can't believe it. And you guys spent $75 million, well, 54 million US dollars, 75 million Canadian dollars. And by the way, as soon as I saw that, I thought, I remember when I was growing up, the Canadian dollar was worth about 90 cents to the American dollar. Now it's worth 2/3 as much. You know what you guys should do? When it gets down to half as much, so 2 Canadian dollars for 1 American dollar, maybe you should just have everybody turn in their Canadian dollars and get half as many American dollars. You know, it'd be a fair trade, and then you guys could save the money associated with having all your organizations that control your Canadian dollars. Just go along with us. And that would really help out trade, wouldn't it? That would be a great thing. All have dollar currency. Because you guys are a pretty good country. You guys have a lot of good raw materials. By the way, I'm nuclear trained. I was a retired captain. I was in nuclear submarines. Not a captain of a nuclear submarine, because I was in the reserves when I made captain. But I understand nuclear power. In fact, I visited a couple of your nuclear stations, including the Bruce A and Bruce B stations, way up there. So anyway, bottom line is that ad was stupid, and you guys need to do something about that. You guys stepped over the line. You guys cheated and you lied. The name of my channel is Honor and Knowledge, so obviously honor is a big, big deal to me. And you guys had no honor with the putting out of that advertisement. And then when it all became known and you realized probably that you shouldn't have done that, Premier Doug Ford said after he airs it a couple more days, then he would take it off. Well, guess what? You shouldn't have done that. I just know that Premier Doug Ford appears to me to be a big bully. You guys think President Trump is a bully, but he's not. He is trying to restore America. Well, guess what? I'll just use his slogan. He's making America great again. You know, Canada used to be great to me. I remember all the stories I've read about World War II and the Canadians who did so much to help out the world. My father was in B-17s in World War II. My wife's father was a Marine on Iwo Jima in the Pacific. I was in nuclear submarines. My family, our family, is filled with military people, some heroes. I know that there were a lot of heroes in Canada. I also know that you guys have reduced your military budget to such a small amount. It's ridiculous. And I remember towards the end of the Trudeau administration, he had a plan to cut another $1 billion, which is a big deal for your guys' military. He was going to cut $1 billion out of the military. And then, while he was still in office, I remember seeing a commission was going to be set up related to the acquisition of submarines. But not a commission to actually go acquire submarines. It was a commission to study how to set up a commission, if I remember correctly, how to set up a commission to look into what they would need to do in order to then go ahead and maybe someday perhaps order as many as 5 submarines, which means could be 0. And wouldn't that be a wonderful result? Just like most of the commissions that appeared to me to be going on during Prime Minister Trudeau's time. You know what? I just had to see the opposition leaders' videos in order to understand what was going on in your government. Now, your Prime Minister appears to be a decent guy. God knows he has a lot of financial experience. Seems like a very good person. I think President Carney, excuse me, Freudian slip. There's a slip there, just like President Trump called him president. You know, Prime Minister Carney is a wonderful person who needs to do something strong to take the reins of your government. Something positive has to be done, such as going to meet President Trump and saying, what can we do to help you, the United States, get rid of fentanyl, stop illegal immigration, and take care of helping against bad moves from China? Not against China, but bad moves of China. And while I'm on this tirade, the idea of joining with France, England, and some other wimpy countries at this time. I hate saying wimpy about France because I love that country, but they're acting like big wimps right now. The idea of joining with them and recognizing this thing called a Palestinian state. Right now, this instant, we need to get rid of Hamas totally. And the fact that you guys supported something different than that by providing aid and assistance to the enemy, I find that so hard to believe. You guys poked the bear with that one too, didn't you? And that is on you, Prime Minister Carney. You know, you guys need to sit back and decide what's the difference between right and wrong. Right? Not only what is right and what is wrong, but what's the difference there? There's a lot. There's a lot of difference between the good of Israel and the bad of Hamas. I think enough of this. You guys had a $45 billion trade deficit last year. You guys raised tariffs against dairy products coming in from the United States. President Trump gave you lots of advance warning that he was going to do something against Canada. Lots and lots of advance warning. And you guys just sat back and did nothing. Next, you guys poked the bear by putting tariffs in on Kuzma products from the United States, but we never did that to you guys. Then you did this Ronald Reagan ad, and you guys recognized a Palestinian state. Not a time to do that. So I'm in support of President Trump not talking to Prime Minister Carney and raising the tariffs farther until you guys figure out that we are your friends and you need to treat us like friends, not like people that you can live off of to keep your socialist world going up in Canada. You can keep your socialist world going up in Canada if you want to, but not with the blood of the United States. You know, build up your military again. Enough said. You disappoint me, Canada. You disappoint me. Oh, I'm sorry, I just remembered something. At the beginning of the video, I said I would only use one French word more in the video, and I didn't. So I will say, you know what? Premier Douglas Ford, to me, is acting as bad as Democrats are acting in the United States. But that is probably a worse thing than the French word that I was going to call him. He's a piece of bleep. That's how I look at him with regards to what he did distorting President Ronald Reagan's talk to the American people. Bye-bye.